potential witness tampering in the January 6th probe, following star witness Cassidy Hutchinson's bombshell testimony in this week's surprise hearing. NBC News has now confirmed at least one exhibit Liz Cheney read out loud, detailing a concerning message in which a Trump ally seemed to be coaxing the witness into testifying positively on Trump's behalf. Well, that was received by Cassidy Hutchinson.
This is a call received by one of our witnesses. Quote, "A person let me know you have your deposition tomorrow. He wants me to let you know he's thinking about you. He knows you're loyal and you're going to do the right thing when you go in for your deposition."
NBC News has also confirmed that a person referenced in that message, well, it's Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. In other words, Mark Meadows, let me know you have your deposition tomorrow, is what the slide should read. Now, Hutchinson had been represented by longtime Trump White House lawyer Stefan Passantino. For the last year and a half, Passantino's law firm has been receiving payments ranging from $10,000 to $45,000 from Trump's Save America PAC for legal consulting. This is all in the public record. The Washington Post reporting Hutchinson cut ties to Passantino after he suggested that she not testify publicly. The Post also pointing out federal laws cover attempts to tamper with congressional testimony. In case none of that was not crystal clear to you, tampering with a witness is a crime. So these new details, they're chilling. They sound a lot like the kind of thing you hear from fictional mob bosses.
As long as I continue to be a team player, they know I'm on the right team. I'm doing the right thing.
We know you do the right thing.
You have your deposition tomorrow. He wants me to let you know he's thinking about you.
Listen, Danny, we just want you to know how glad we are a guy like you was on that jury.
He knows you're loyal.
You were loyal to my father for years.
You know I'll continue to stay in good graces in Trump world.
They feel safe because they know I'm close. But the people that want to do otherwise, they think twice because they know I'm close.
Uncanny parallels, but this is real stuff. We're not talking about fictional mob bosses. We're talking about the former president of the United States. And the threats, they're not stopping. Trump slandering Hutchinson in an interview with Newsmax after she gave her public testimony.
This lady yesterday, there's something wrong with her? The woman is living in fantasy land. She's a social climber. Some whack job can say this stuff and get away with it. I got somebody called up, numerous people, that she's not good. She was not respected by the people in the White House. I hardly know who she is. And then I see this woman getting up, and she's making up stories like one after another. She's been totally discredited. I think the woman is, she's got serious problems. Let me put it that way.
What did you make of Fox
Mental
News?
problems.
The former president may be walking himself into some massive defamation litigation there. So some are saying what the former president said about her there, too, could amount to witness tampering. And before we turn to our guests, a small update on the January 6th committee's investigation. NBC News has learned former White House counsel Pat Cipollone will likely agree to a transcribed interview with the committee. Hutchinson, of course, invoking his name repeatedly in her testimony this week. Joining me now is former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti and U.S. special correspondent for BBC Studios, Katty Kay. It's so great to have you guys today. Renato, I want to start with you. You prosecuted mafia cases as a federal prosecutor. Exactly how close of an argument, how strong of an argument could be made that we've reached witness tampering elements per that federal statute?
Well, it's interesting. I do think that on its face, it's worth investigating. And one thing I'll say, Katie, that's interesting here, the structure of how this is done by somebody to protect themselves, right? If you notice, Mark Meadows didn't contact her himself. Mark Meadows talks to some low-level person who sends her a text, right? So then there's a distance between Mark Meadows and the person who's sending the text. Of course, he also has there's some vague language in there, right? It doesn't say, you better not say this, or you better omit this from your testimony. It's all in sort of vague language. And, there's a reason why criminals, whether they're a drug cartel kingpin or a mafioso use that sort of language. And that's because, of course, it makes it, a little bit harder to prove. It gives them an argument. And I expect that they've done this in part to give themselves some wiggle room. And so I do think it deserves some investigation. And I think my take is, Katie, I think that Liz Cheney put this out there as a shot across the bow. She was letting them know and putting them on notice. We know what you're up to. We're looking at your texts. We're going to get those messages. And if you keep this up, there may be some trouble for you in the future.
Yeah, but Renato, before I move on to Katie, let's be very clear, though. You're never going to have the explicit threat. It's always going to be the circumstantial evidence that's going to come from the insinuation. So you're never going to have that direct threat to do harm. But this is typical for Donald Trump, right? I mean, this is definitely not something new that we're seeing from him in the event that he actually is implicated in this.
Well, 100%. I mean, Michael Cohen, if you remember, he testified that he never had to have conversations with Trump. He knew what Trump would, Trump would sort of make these statements out in public, and he knew what he was supposed to say. And so I think, what this person the person that Meadows was directing to contact her, he was essentially saying, what the party line is, what Trump world wants you to say, and you need to stick to the party line. And of course, she had a lawyer who was being provided to her for a period of time who was also going to help her stay with the party line. It really wasn't until she got her own attorney that she felt the freedom to go to a different path.
Katie, along that vein, we actually have some sound of Michael Cohen I want to play for you quickly, and I'll ask you some questions on the other side of that.
I was looking at the text messages and the communications that Liz Cheney put up, and the words are all the same. You are loved, right? You are in our corner. Remain in our corner. We will take care of you.
What is he saying when he says he's on you, thinking about you, looking at you?
Yeah, he's trying to be like a mob boss. He's throwing his arms around you and telling you you're protected. I'm the president of the United States of America. I'm the most powerful man on the planet. Either you stay on my side or you will suffer from my ire. And that's exactly what happened to me.
So, Katie, as you'll recall, this happened after Michael Cohen had the raid happen and all of the stuff had been seized by the feds. Sounds like if you stay in his good graces, like any good mob boss, you're fine. But if you dare to cross him, tell the truth, cooperate with the government, you're going to be facing the ire of Donald Trump and a whole army of MAGA acolytes. So, Katie, did Cassidy Hutchinson, by getting new counsel, make a decision, make this calculated move to say, you know what, I have to come forward and I have to honor the truth?
Yeah, I mean, which came first? Did she make the decision to get the counsel because she had something else that she wanted to say? Or did she get the new counsel and then the counsel advised her that there was more she could say to the committee? It seems from the reporting like it was the former, that she had the counsel who had been close to Donald Trump, had been perhaps paid for by people close to Donald Trump. And that counsel was limiting the answers that she gave to the committee. You go into the committee deposition and you only answer what they tell you. You don't answer any more than what you're asked, right? And then she came away from those early depositions and thought to herself, well, actually, there is more that I would like to say, but I perhaps don't want to say it in front of that counsel, or that counsel is not advising me to answer that. So I'm going to change my counsel, which, for a 24-year-old young woman who potentially is facing the wrath of MAGA world, that's a pretty bold thing to do, to fire her counsel because she felt there was more that the committee needed to know. So she gets rid of that counsel, she gets her new counsel, and that's when the contact is made with Liz Cheney, and she goes back and tells them more of the things that we've heard now in that hearing earlier this week. The parallels with Michael Cohen are really uncanny. It's that mixture of we are going to protect you, sort of flattery, we love you, the boss loves you, we will put our arms around you. And then, as Michael Cohen also describes, the kind of incredible sort of kickback from the president after Cassidy Hutchinson had made her that public deposition that had been interrogated in the January the 6th hearing this week. And he just comes down on her like a ton of bricks in the way that Donald Trump often does. She's a whack job. She has serious mental problems, the kinds of things that he's saying about her. And Michael Cohen said exactly the same thing, that when you're in the crossfires of the president, or in this case, the former president, it's a pretty terrifying position to be in.
Renato, though, think about this change in counsel. It clearly was a line of demarcation, almost like that line in the sand of saying, I am actually going to now come forward and publicly speak, not behind those closed-door depots. But, Renato, we know that Donald Trump, through his PAC, his political organization, and through his allies, he's been funding legal fees, not only for somebody like Cassidy Hutchinson, but for several other people that have been witnesses before the 1-6 committee. Ethically, it's okay. You can have a third party pay your legal fees. You know that as a lawyer, Renato. But don't you think somebody paying your legal fees in and of itself gets you so dangerously close to the idea that you have to remain loyal to them? So isn't there this idea that maybe she owed it to him because she was getting her fees paid by Donald Trump?
Well, here's what I would say. I mean, look, as you pointed out, Katie, it is ethical to have someone else pay for your legal fees. Obviously, when somebody's paying, let's say, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of legal fees on your behalf, there's an element of gratitude or potentially an implicit obligation that you feel. Obviously, I can't speak for Ms. Hutchinson, but I think that there can be this element where you feel like there's an incentive or you'd feel wrong going against that person. I think it's also fair to say that while it is certainly ethical and very routine for attorneys' fees to be paid in investigations of all sorts, it is the case that when counsel is, let's say, connected with or coordinated with other counsel, and whether it's a joint defense or some other sort of arrangement, there's a lot of communication that takes place. And I'm sure Ms. Hutchinson had the inkling or the feeling that her attorney was probably coordinating with other attorneys who are representing other witnesses that were part of Trump world, and anything she said would get passed, to those other, powers that be, potentially before she had a chance to say something publicly. So I suspect she did not feel comfortable testifying, and that's why she did what she did.